Thank God. Hey.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm going to do a cute thing.
A cute thing?
Yeah, well, if it works. It's always the. I was going to play some music and have like a thing on the screen, but you know.
Oh, I love it.
We'll see if it actually.
But it's just like Yaffa and I are just gonna we'll just be like riffing.
Groove it out.
That's cute. Like a what do you call those? Comedy show.
Yeah. That's what we do. We do comedy shows.
I love it.
I don't.
People
Yaffa
always say
actually
that about
does
me.
though.
Yeah, right. People say that about me all the time. Comedy shows. That's me. That's what I'm known for. Comedy shows.
Did that work? Was it effective?
I don't hear sound.
Oh, well, that's because I didn't turn on the sound yet.
Well.
Hi,
So
Rory.
it's funny we're going in exact order. What's happening? It's Rabba Sara, Rory, Daniella, Goldie,
No,
me.
I'm not. I think I'm second.
So it's exactly the reverse order of how we're on the screen.
That's because it's alpha. Oh, that's funny.
Oh no, I know.
No,
I
No, I know it's
Daniella-
alpha. I knew that was what happened, but I was like, oh, it's exactly the opposite. Okay.
Yep.
Daniella.
Hello.
Oh.
Oh, of course there's going to be a Spotify ad. All right, well, my Spotify must have expired. That's cute.
We can still group to it.
Daniella, are you sharing text or are you just talking?
No, I'm sharing also. Is that going to work? I'm assuming it works.
Hi, Rona. Hi, Lori.
I just don't know how to have my
We have
notes and
guests
also
here.
have
It's fine.
sharing.
I'm not. Well, look,
Oh.
Daniella will go first, and then I'll go, and you'll decide which one you like better, and then you'll decide what you want to do.
I just have like a PowerPoint.
Oh, fancy PowerPoint. It's too fancy for me.
Wait, I can do it for you, Yaffa. If you give me your stuff, then everyone else is doing theirs because you're last and I'm first. So we can probably get it up there.
That is extremely nice of you. No, that's okay. It's okay. We're gonna just leave it. It's gonna be fine.
Okay.
Wow.
We're
Nice.
welcoming guests here, friends. Hello, everyone.
Welcome.
You know what the hardest thing with the Mac is? Actually, it looks like when you're speaking, it looks like you're down.
It's like what?
Hi, Dan.
Hi, guys.
Hi.
Nice to meet you. You're so dressed up.
Absolutely. Just for you. Hi, Yaffa. How are you?
Hi, Rory.
Hi. How's it going?
Oh, okay. How are you?
Happy Hanukkah.
Happy Chanukah.
Happy Hanukkah. Happy Hanukkah.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. We're so happy you're here. We would love to invite you to turn your cameras on as we get started.
So wonderful to see your faces. Hello, hello. Chag Sameach. It is the first night of Hanukkah, and I'm really excited to be here with you all. We are in for a treat. We have some amazing, amazing Torah still to come. And by way of introduction, I just wanted to share a brief thought that I've been thinking about, and it suddenly occurred to me this year that obviously light and Torah, light and flames get a lot of play during Hanukkah, and certainly, specifically this year, that makes a lot of sense. As rabbis, as educators, and spiritual seekers, there's so much to say. Especially today when we feel the darkness in profound ways, we need the Torah of light to help us penetrate that overwhelming darkness that some of us feel. And yet, when I went back to that all too familiar section in the Gemara in Masechet Shabbat that asks, "My Chanukah, what is Chanukah?" I noticed that there was a key piece of information missing that I was suddenly searching for. What was it that the Jews actually lit? Now we know that when the Hashmonaim came back and they arrived in the Beit HaMikdash, it had been desecrated by the Syrian Greek army, and they found a pach shemen, one curse of oil. But what did they actually light? In other words, we know what they didn't light, right? The classic 7-armed golden menorah that is described in detail in the Torah had already been stolen. They didn't light a 7-armed golden elaborate menorah. We also know, and the Gemara discusses this in Masechet Menachot and in Rosh Hashanah, that it was possible, although it was questionable, but it was possible to remake that menorah. And they couldn't make it out of solid gold. It wasn't material that was available to them. So the rabbis debated, is the menorah kosher if it's made out of wood? What if it's made out of steel? What if it's made out of iron? What if it's made out of tin? And the debate goes on, and it seems like many of those materials were kosher to create a menorah. So I imagine that when they came back, when the Hashmonaim and the Jews came back to the Beit HaMikdash, one of the miracles that is not even discussed is that that menorah, whichever material it was made, was still there. It was found in one piece. You would imagine that with all the destruction and the mess that was made by the army, that candelabra somehow remained intact. And perhaps it answers that age-old question of why we celebrate 8 nights of Hanukkah. There's many answers given, but the Rama asks, why 8 nights of Hanukkah? In other words, there's only 7 arms of a candelabra, and the light only had to last 7 nights. So why do we celebrate 8? There's many, many answers given, but perhaps I want to suggest that one of the 8th night that we're lighting represents, and therefore the 8 pillars, the 8 candelabra Chanukah that we light today, has come to represent the miracle that foundation was solid. That foundation was never destroyed. And it's that Torah that I was seeking and looking for tonight. And I think this year in general. You see, I think that resilience emerges from a strong foundation. Its light absolutely captures our imagination. It's what we see first, but the base, the strong and sturdy and steady bottom, is what holds us up. So I want to consider, what is your foundation? What is the thing that keeps you grounded, that keeps you steady, that keeps you on the floor, from which you can grow, from which we can emerge and really feel that light that emanates on us? And I think that when we have a clear, strong foundation, so much more can happen. So much light can emanate. And so my bracha, my blessing, is that we can find that steadiness, find that strength, find that material that keeps us solid on the ground. And it's from there that I wish us all will be able this year, and as a community and as a world, to emerge resilient and with the intent on shedding our light throughout the world. So with that Torah in mind, I wanted to turn it over to our amazing panel of scholars. And first up is we have Rabba Daniella Pressner. Daniella is going to teach us Hanukkah as a celebration of potential. She joins us as the head of school of Kiva Day School, and want to welcome you, Daniella. Thank you. And as Daniella is coming off mute, I want to also just share that tonight is meant to be a night of Torah and also a night of helping us reach our goal to continue to make Maharat strong. We've had 12 years of that foundation, 12 years of that base, and our intent is to keep growing. And so we have already launched our end of the year Revava campaign, our end of the year campaign. We so far have raised $77,077 out of $200,000. And I'm hoping that with your help and through spreading your light, we'll be able to get a little bit closer to our goal, which we hope to reach by the beginning of January. But let's see how much we can raise tonight. Daniella, Rabba Daniella, it's up to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rabba Sara. I really appreciate it. And I think, one thing to always point out is a foundation is constantly growing. And I think the opportunity to really take part in Yeshivat Maharat is that foundation for me that has been able to expand in the past few years. So thank you. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so that everyone can kind of have access to the same text that we'll be looking at briefly tonight. And again, Rabba Sara began with this question, my Chanukah? And we talk about, is Hanukkah the celebration of this victory of the small against the many, or is Hanukkah perhaps potentially the celebration of the fact that the oil lasted for many, many days, many more days than we thought? And I think I want to push us to ask maybe what if Hanukkah is actually a celebration of potential and not necessarily one or the other, but what would it look like if we really thought deeply about potential? So this is, we're going to look at two Gemaras that are pretty famous. Of course, the famous discussion between Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel. How do we light these candles? Beit Shammai omrim yom rishon madlik shmona mikan ve'elech pochet veholech, right? Beit Shammai teaches us that we start with 8 candles and then we go 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and we lessen the amount of candles that we light each night. And Beit Hillel says, no, actually we start with 1 and then each night we increase the amount of candles that we light. And of course we know that we follow Beit Hillel because ma'alin bekodesh ve'ein moridin. There's this idea that every day we increase in our holiness, and we don't necessarily decrease in our holiness. And so we follow this concept, and that's how we know that every light we light one more night. But I think we really grow more deeply when we think about what each of these ideas says. And the fact that both of these ideas are actually specifically written within the Gemara so that we can keep both of these traditions, whether or not we decide to follow each of them. So when we ask when we say this idea for Beit Shammai, really the question that Beit Shammai is asking is maybe how many days of Hanukkah remain as each day passes, right? So if we're looking from that perspective, how many days of Hanukkah remain as each day passes, we're really looking at, we know what the potential is, but every day that potential is going to go into its actual, versus how many days until Hanukkah, where the 8th day marks Zot Chanukah, every day you're growing until you've reached your potential. And this question of potential versus actual state, I think, is really interesting. Oftentimes our kids at school say, no, it's beautiful because the light keeps increasing. But you could also look at this idea that Beit Shammai also has this beautiful idea of you're starting with what it can be. You know in advance what it can be. You're not waiting for this wondrous miracle because you actually believe in the miracle in advance. So the potential is there from the start. And the question is, does it matter? Why are both recorded? And I think, in fact, it does matter. We're going to look at the second text to really think about that. A second text to really think about it a little bit. And so the second text is from Avodah Zarah, Gemara and Avodah Zarah. And the question is, what does God do in the 12 hours of God's day? And so the answer is, for the first 3 hours, HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yoshev ve'osek b'Torah, that God sits and takes part in Torah learning. And there's a beautiful image of, God sitting on this throne and taking part in Torah. And then we come into this second collection of 3 hours, and Vidan et kol ha'olam kulo, that God sits and judges the entire world. And then we learn that God sees that actually the world would be in trouble if God judged the world all day long, and that's all God did. Why? Because we might not be able to live up to this potential that God actually sees in us. And so God gets off of the throne and gets off of this idea of din, of judgment, and actually enters into rachamim, mercy. And I think there's something so incredibly special about a text that teaches that even though God sees this profound potential, there's this element of getting off your throne to really attempt to address the actual before bringing back this idea of potential. And in many ways, I think this is really what Hanukkah is about. So we're going to look at a third text to think about that a little bit more. So in the Midrash Chanhuma, we talk about what happens as the days get added on. So you light the first day and you have shemen left over. You have oil left over in the cup. Can you use that oil for the next day? And so you might think yes or no. Do we have any thoughts? Can you give me a thumbs up if you think yes? I'm going to go ahead and look at the team. People are unsure. Okay. So the answer is in the Midrash is yes, actually, you can use that oil for the next day, and you have to add some more. Mosifa lav kol shehu umadliko b'yom sheni. You can add more and then you use it for the second day. And of course, in the second day, you might have the oil from the first and the second day. And then can you use that oil? The answer again is yes, you can use that oil as long as you add some new oil. And this question of potential, I think, is really answered in that every day, on some level, we start with what we had the day before. But on the other end of the coin, every day we actually have to add something else to the meaning of what our potential is. And so when we think about it, both for ourselves, of course, I'm always thinking about it from the perspective of children, right? They come to a day. Maybe it was a bad day, maybe it was a hard day, maybe it was a difficult day. We're still going to include it because it's a really important piece of who they are and who they are going to become. And the next day you add more oil. And the next day you add more oil. We keep adding to this notion of potential, but without detracting from exactly who that person is at that moment. I think if we challenge ourselves to not just see this as an idea of something that we take on in Hanukkah, but actually our profound ability to honor what it means to mirror the divine command. I think we really see this idea of what it means to honor others, which is take what people have, take what they're coming with. We have to take what they're coming with and then help them build up to what the next potential future can be. And so I want to end actually with a short story that's personal to our family. In this picture, we see our daughter, Amalia. Amalia now, to give you perspective, is actually 10 years old. And in this picture, she's 6 years old and it's almost Hanukkah. And Amalia decided that she wanted for a Hanukkah gift to cut her hair. Her hair had been all the way down her back. She decided that she wanted to cut it and donate it to a child cancer survivor. And I had never done this before. I mean, I had done it, as a young adult in New York, but I had never taken a child to do this. And so we went into the salon in Nashville, and she was beaming, but also really nervous. Her knees were shaking because she, it was a big change. She had really long hair. She wasn't sure if she was going to like it, but she did want to be able to give of herself. And so we entered the salon, and I said, my daughter would like to cut her hair and donate it. And the salon owner said, I've never done that before, and we can't really do that here. And Amalia's face went from beaming pride to just feeling completely crushed. And I looked at her and I said, Amalia, it's okay. We're not going to continue this journey tonight, but we are going to continue this journey tomorrow. Let's hold, and we're going to try again tomorrow at a different salon. So the next day we went to a different salon, and we presented the same question, right? This is my daughter, Amalia. She really wants to donate her hair. Is there any way we could make this happen? And the owner said, I've never done that before, but let's see what we can do. I'm sure we can figure it out. And to me, I think when we talk about honoring individual spirit and then honoring our commitment to a community, that's what this is about. Hanukkah is about taking exactly what we have, even if we don't 100% know what that potential is, adding a little bit to it and moving forward into greatness every single day. So Amalia did end up being able to donate her hair. It was a beautiful spiritual journey for her. And really that salon owner that you see in front was able to make that happen for her. And I think we have these opportunities to be these salon owners every single day, not just for ourselves, but more importantly for those around us. Happy Hanukkah.
Wow. Just thinking about the potential still to come for each of us, for us as a community, for us as a world. It's very inspiring. Thank you so much. Up next, we are so excited to hear Torah from Maharat Rory Pekinese, class of 2014. Maharat Rory is the executive director at JCRC, Jewish Community Relations Council in St. Louis. And she's going to teach us about light in the darkness, how Hanukkah changes the world. So great to see you.
Good to see you. Thank you, Rabba Sara. Thank you all for being here. And thank you, Rabba Daniella, for that beautiful Torah that sets the stage for all of the rest of our discussions for tonight as well. So tonight, as you all know, we mark the first night of the holiday of Hanukkah. And we've already talked a little bit about what this holiday is even about, right? It's the 8 days that commemorate, maybe depending on how you tell the story, a group of people who, against all odds and despite intense pressure and threats on their lives, preserved the Jewish tradition and rededicated our sacred temple. It's the story of a small army that persevered against a military empire, the weak who emerged victorious against the strong, and the miracle of a small vial of oil that burned for 8 days when it should have only burned for 1. And we've already been given some twists on this, but I'm going to bring up a different version of the story of Hanukkah, one that's a little bit less well known, one that goes back before the book of Maccabees and the temple in Jerusalem, and even all of the stories that we have of our patriarchs and our matriarchs, of the Avot and the Imahot. And it's a story that goes all the way back to Adam. The Talmud says, and I'll share the source in the chat afterwards. This Talmud says, Tanu Rabbanan, our sages taught, Lefisha ra'a Adam harishon yom shemitma'etz v'holech. When Adam the first saw the days shortening, Amar, Oy li shema b'shvil shesarakti olam chashok ba'adi v'chozer letohu vavohu, v'zohi mitah shenikniksa alai min hashamayim. He said, woe unto me, maybe it's because I sinned, the world is dimming, and it will return to chaos and void, and this is the death which was decreed upon me from heaven. Now imagine it for a moment. This always blows me away. Adam is the very first man. And we know that the punishment for eating the fruit from the tree of knowledge of good and evil was that there would be death in the world. But he had never seen anyone die. He didn't know what death was. And if we follow the tradition that Adam was created on Rosh Hashanah, often in the modern Gregorian calendar in September or October, and that he sinned that very same day, September turned into October, and then into November, and ultimately December. And he noticed what all of us have witnessed the past few months. He saw the days getting shorter, the nights getting longer, and he feared that this was the death that was coming to him, that the darkness would continue to increase, the light would continue to decrease, until nothing would be left except null and void. Amad v'yashav shmona yamim b'ta'anit u'batfilah, and so he promptly sat 8 days in fasting and in prayer. Kivan shera'at kufat tevet, ra'a yom shema'arich v'holech. And then something happened. He observed the winter equinox and saw that the days started to lengthen. Amar minhago shel olamhu. He said, this is the way of the world. Halach v'yasa shmona yamim tovim. He went and he established 8 days of rejoicing. L'shana ha'acheret asan le'elu v'elu yamim tovim. And the following year, he appointed these days as festival days. These 8 days of festival. We are living in some incredibly dark times. Literally in some of the shortest days of the year, and metaphorically, as some days it feels like the darkness of the world threatens to overtake us. We are living through a global pandemic, and we have seen some of the deadliest days in this country's history. Rising poverty and homelessness, not to mention anti-Semitism, racism, Islamophobia, homophobia. I could go on, but you already know it. And it is hard not to become overwhelmed by the reports, to become paralyzed. Minhago shel olamhu, this is the way of the world. The world grows dark, and the world grows light. But there's one very important detail, one crucial element that we have to never forget. As the days reach their shortest, as the nights grow long, just when the darkness seems as though it is about to overtake us, we do not just sit around and wait for the light to come. In the darkest times of the year, tonight, we light one candle. We add a light and we put it in our windows, at our doorposts, in our front yards. We put the light into the world where it can be seen and where it can add illumination for others. On Hanukkah, we start with just one flame, and that one flame cannot overcome all the darkness, but it can start. We light one light, and then the next day, tomorrow, we light that light again, plus one more. We'll increase our light just a little bit. And the next day, we'll increase a little more, and the next day, just a little bit more. Our job is not to eliminate the darkness in the world. Our job is just to put a little more light into the world, and then to add just a little bit more. Because darkness will yield more darkness, and pain will yield more pain, and it can feel insurmountable. But light will yield more light. Our greatest act of faith year after year is to stand in this moment knowing that there is more darkness to come and join together to light our light. Because light begets light. It grows and expands, it multiplies and magnifies, and we can choose to be part of that cycle. This is the story of Hanukkah, the story of faith, the faith to fight on, the faith to persevere, the faith to burn that oil, the faith to know that this darkness will not last forever, but that we must be part of the story of lighting that very first light. And it's the faith to know that once we light that first light, that we can continue to increase that light, and that all of us around us can continue to increase that light until we see the light start to overtake that darkness. Happy Hanukkah, Chag Sameach to you all, and thank you again for joining us, for sharing your light with us, and for helping us to increase our light into the world as we get to share our Torah.
Thank you, Maharat, Rory. Light begets light, and I'm certainly, like you said, feeling it here, and also so grateful to those who have already donated to our end of the year campaign. We have already raised $500 and really excited and grateful. Want to now welcome our next speaker. We are so thrilled to welcome Rabbanit Goldie Guy, class of 2017. Rabbanit Goldie is the Director of Religious Engagement at Anshe Shalom and B'nai Israel in Chicago, Illinois. And Goldie will be teaching Yamei Hallel V'Hoda'ah, Hanukkah, and practicing gratitude during a pandemic. We need a lot of gratitude right now, so thank you.
All right. Thank you, Rabba Sara. And so I'm going to take a moment and share my screen. You're going to see my sources as we go. Drawing on what Maharat Rory just said, that light begets light, we're going to be talking about how we draw on other inner resources in the face of the pandemic, how we can create more positivity, but not in an empty way. And again, I want to emphasize that, right, and we're going to see this in the sources as we go through this. Gratitude and the practice of hoda'ah that we're going to speak about is multifaceted. The gratitude that I'm talking about tonight, and we're going to see in our tradition, isn't just about seeing things that are good, quote unquote, and being thankful for them. It's also seeing the whole picture and being with things as they are, being present to reality and being rooted in the moment, being grounded in the moment, seeing everything as it is, right? And gratitude will be kind of seeing that whole picture. So I'm going to take you through that a bit as we kind of think about how do we use this practice of hoda'ah, of recognizing what is, to face really difficult times like we are now. So gratitude during COVID-19, right? What does that even mean? And how do we not make it this empty statement of, oh, just be thankful when things are really, really tough? So there's an institute in Berkeley that studies ways of living, like good ways of living. There's a research institute, and I can share my sources with you afterwards. I have a link to their website. And there's this article called What Are We Grateful For During COVID-19 that was put out by this institute. And what this segment says is that basically during COVID, we're all feeling an immense threat, right? Like Maharat Rory just talked about in the story of Adam Harishon, the first man, right? The darkness is encroaching and it's hard to face, right? There's that feeling of what's going to happen now? I don't know when or how this darkness will go away. So we're feeling a lot of threat imminently, right? There's actual, and that triggers stress and anxiety. And at the same time, what we can do, the resources we can draw upon have become severely limited, right? We're kind of cut off from variety. We're cut off from going outside, interacting with larger circles of people for keeping others safe, right? But it kind of limits the external resources we can access or that we normally would draw upon in order to deal with such stress like we're doing now. So in the final paragraph of this section, I just want to read aloud to you. Threatening or just mundane pandemic conditions don't make fertile ground for thankfulness, right? This makes sense. But gratitude is one of the tools we can use in both of these circumstances, when there are threats facing us and when things become mundane, right? That we're seeing the same people and we can't, through repetition, right? This article says, right? We've kind of become numb and desensitized to the things in our lives that really give us strength on a day-to-day basis. But when you're seeing the same people over and over again, and you're watching the same movies, right? There's only so many Netflix things we can stream until it becomes very mundane. So gratitude, says this article, is the key to awakening our sensitivity and our consciousness to see things anew. Gratitude is one of the tools we can use in these circumstances. When we give thanks for everyday things, we make them visible again. Okay, when we've grown blind to these things, and gratitude is that tool that says, look again. This is powerful. When we're able to do that, numerous studies suggest that when we give our happiness a little boost and train our brains to see the good, even amid so much bad. It's gratitude as a tool and as a training of the mind that helps us combat both of these things which face us right now, the threats and the mundane. So I want to look at the idea of hoda'ah, of gratitude, right? There's a lot of talk about gratitude, studies about gratitude, institutes studying gratitude and how to practice it. There are gratitude journals and noticing every day, mindfulness practices. Where does hoda'ah come into our tradition, to the Jewish tradition? Now, Hanukkah is a holiday that is uniquely characterized as Yemei Hallel v'hoda'ah, days of praise and hoda'ah, gratitude. And this is as opposed to other Chagim that we find in the Tanakh, right, in the Torah, that are characterized as Moadim, days of edut, of witnessing, of gathering, of Moed. But Hanukkah is a holiday of Hoda'ah, right? We know the story in Bavli, Masechet Shabbat, Daf Kaf Aleph Amud Bet, of retaking the temple, finding the cruse of oil that was pure with the seal intact. And the next year, says this narrative, right, they established these days as festival days and of praise. Yemei Hallel v'hoda'ah, days of hoda'ah, acknowledgement, of awareness, of presence of mind. So Hanukkah is uniquely that holiday of hoda'ah, of this presence. So what does that actually look like in our tradition? How do we define living Hanukkah, celebrating Hanukkah as a holiday of gratitude? Now, I've also seen some wonderful projects from Maharat colleagues who are doing wonderful work around heightening our sense of gratitude around this time in meaningful, deep ways. Creating gratitude miracle gardens, writing gratitude journals, and doing a daily gratitude practice. But in our tradition, the word hoda'ah actually isn't always interpreted as meaning that Hanukkah should be days of gratitude. Instead, Rashi there on the Gemara says that hoda'ah means saying al hanisim. Okay, we do that too, right? We take Rashi and we say, yes, this is a practice we have. We include hoda'ah on the miracle of Hanukkah, acknowledgement of the miracle by saying al hanisim. That's how we do and how we fulfill the Gemara in Shabbat to make them halal, yemei halal v'hoda'ah. Okay, but I want to look at this word hoda'ah a little further back than the Breita here in the My Hanukkah Sugya. So the first time that Chazal say that the first person to actually give hoda'ah was Leah. And when did she do that? She did that with the birth of her son, Judah. We read in Bereshit that Leah conceived and bore a son, and she declares, this time I will praise the Lord. Hapam odeh et Hashem. Odeh, the same root as hoda'ah. To thank, to acknowledge, to admit. And that is the root of the word, the name Yehudah. And that's where we get our name as Yehudim. I heard a great turn of phrase from another rabbi who says, that makes us gratituders, right? Yehudah is the child of gratitude. We are the gratituders, the Yehudim. It's in our blood, it's in our tradition. This is the original Hoda'ah. Now, what makes this distinct from the names that she gave her other sons? How are we going to isolate what Hoda'ah actually means? We'll see. We'll see in the source, in the following source, in source number 5 on my source sheet. Leah conceives and calls her first son Reuven. What's the reason there? It means the Lord has seen my affliction. And it also means now my husband will love me. Similarly, when she bears another son, she says, this time it's because I call him Shimon, because the Lord heard Shama that I was unloved. So God gave me a second son to combat that, right? I want my husband to pay attention to me. I want to be more loved. And then she conceives and gives birth to a third son, Levi. And she says, why is he called Levi? Hapam yelaveni ishi. This time my husband will become attached to me. Okay. distinct from the Yehuda, who is our gratitude moment. The first time we encounter gratitude, we have the 3 previous sons being attributed, like her gratitude for them being attributed to outside causes. She's not grateful in this stated pasuk that, wow, I have a healthy baby boy and here he is and I'm so joyous for his life and for having him in my life and what will unfold. And no, it's karuch, it's attached to another reason, right? I need this to happen. I need my husband to be there for me and to pay attention to me. She's forsaken for Rachel, who's the more beloved wife. So she really, really wants the love and attention of her husband. And she says, okay, maybe if I have another son, maybe if I'm more valued to him in this way. And those are her first 3 sons, right? She's not grateful for their birth in and of itself in this present moment. Maybe their birth will cause something else to happen, more love to grow, more attention to be had. But with Yehuda, simply, hapa'am odeh et Hashem, she stops and she says, wow, I've had more than my fill. Right? If I take a step back from this, I have 4 sons now out of the 12. There are 4 imahot. I've exceeded my portion. This was not coming to me. And it's just a moment to stop and say, this is phenomenal. Like, this is, wow, what a miraculous moment. My 4th son, Yehuda. So that's the moment that that the Bavli Brachot touches upon when it says, from the day that the Holy One, blessed be He, created the world, no one expressed gratitude until Leah came and said, Hapa'am odeh Hashem. No one in the world expressed gratitude. Now, we know that can't be true, right? Hopefully it's not true, like factually, but what do they mean by that? They mean that Leah's hoda'ah, her thankfulness, her gratitude, was the essence or represented the essence of what gratitude is, of that pause, of being present in the moment, of not saying, okay, this is a stepping stone to the next thing, that now this happened, I can finally pursue that goal. Now that this happened, I can finally move there. Okay, right, it's not, she stops, Yehuda, Hapa'am odeh Hashem, this is miraculous. I have gratitude for my new baby son. And we have other examples of Rachel, in addition, when she names her son Yosef, she says again, Yosef Hashem li ben acher, right? He's born, and she says, can I please have another? This is so lovely. Can I have another son? Okay, Leah is unique in her gratitude moment. And so the Midrash says this is a muscle, right? Gratitude, the practice of being present in the present moment, being with things as they are, and having that groundedness is something that Leah seized upon, and then we practiced it. Leah seized upon gratitude, so her offspring after her also stood in gratitude. Once you learn it and you start to practice that pause, that just assessing things as they are and seeing the strength in this moment, my resources in this moment, my blessings in this moment, if we can go that far, right, is to say, that's Leah, and then it was practiced. This time we'll thank the Lord. So Judah says, Judah becomes that moment of gratitude. He carries that forward, as it says in the pasuk, Yehuda atah yoducha achecha. He also represents gratitude. In Chazal's eyes in the Midrash, he practices that gratitude, and so on with David and with Daniella. Leah initiated this concept of gratitude, of presence, and the generations after her saw that model, practiced it. It's a muscle, right? If we take that as our individual example, even in our own lives, we have to take moments to step back and to make that a practice, even for a moment a day, to stop and say, okay, what's here? What's grounding me? What am I thankful for? What am I grateful for? Even though those can be heavy words, but we can say, what's here, right? What resources do I have? I'll conclude with just a couple sentences from Sharon Salzberg. She says, what makes gratitude one of the most subversive qualities is that it trains the mind to seek out the essentials of life for recognition, not the frills, not the phobias, the distractions. If we truly feel grateful, we're not focused on more than what we need. Okay, so that gratitude, just like we saw with Leah, with Yehuda, being grounded with what is. I can see what's here and be grateful. Why? She concludes, because we're in touch with the good in life as well as the suffering, right? We're here. This becomes the resource out of which we can seek change and take action, that presence of mind. That's the Torah of Hanukkah and Yehuda. and our entire nation of Yehudim as gratituders. My blessing to everyone is that we may carry it forward, carry the tradition forward, flex that muscle, and identify our inner resources of gratitude as we face what comes.
Wow, thank you. It was really spectacular. And we have raised $800. So thank you, everybody. We're so grateful that you're helping us continue to build our foundation. And now we're going to turn it over to Rabba Yaffa Epstein. Rabba Yaffa is graduated from class 2015 and is the director of Wexner Heritage Program at the Wexner Foundation. And we will be learning about Until the Last Person Leaves the Market, how Hanukkah teaches us that it's never too late to change.
Thank you so much, Rabba Sara. Hi, everyone. What a joy, what a joy. I'm just gonna pop into the chat my source sheet. So feel free to use that if you'd like, but I don't wanna share my screen because I want to see your faces. Chanukah Sameach, what an incredible, incredible honor it is to be here tonight with you all. And what beautiful Torah we just heard. It's so easy to feel gratitude after all this gorgeous Torah that we've had the chance to hear. It's an honor to learn from you all, my fellow alumni of Yeshivat Maharat, and it's an honor to get to share some Torah with you. Gosh, we are living in some strange times. The pandemic, these days are so tumultuous, highs, lows, grief, losses, silver linings, pivots, emotional roller coasters. Indeed, there's even a nickname for this phenomenon, which is the Corona coaster. For some, one of the ways that they've gotten through these tough times is to develop a set routine, a structure to help them cope, entrenched habits. For others, each day arrives with new challenges, and having any kind of semblance of structure seems impossible. This Hanukkah, I've been thinking a lot about this issue of habits and having healthy habits. Indeed, Hanukkah is about dedication, commitment, lighting every day, consecration, and it's also about rededication, renewal, miracles, the supernatural. What does it mean to dedicate or commit oneself to something? What does it mean to renew or rededicate oneself to something? Are the issues of commitment and renewal fundamentally at odds? Or is there something in the holiday of Hanukkah that asks us to hold both of these things? The Gemara in Masechet Shabbat, in the midst of its conversation regarding lighting Hanukkah and Shabbat lights, quotes Rav Huna. Amar Rav Huna, haragil b'ner, hevyon le banim talmidei chachamim. Hazahir b'mezuzah, zochel dira na'ah, hazahir b'tzitzit, zochel talit na'ah, hazahir b'kiddush hayom, zoche umimale garvei yain. Rav Huna said, one who is ragil, who regularly lights a ner, will merit to have children who are Torah scholars. One who is careful about performing the mitzvah of mezuzah merits a beautiful home. One who is careful about performing the mitzvah of tzitzit merits a beautiful garment. One who is careful about performing the mitzvah of kiddush merits to fill jugs of wine. There are several things about this Gemara that are curious. First of all, the fundamental philosophical issue of equating the performance of mitzvot with reward. As part of this, I want to point out the challenge of what it means that the performance of mitzvot can produce a specific or any kind of child. Also, please notice that the act of candle lighting here is preceded by the word haragil, one who regularly lights the ner. While the other mitzvot, mezuzah, tzitzit, kiddush, the word used to describe their performance is hazahir, one who is careful or meticulous. Why the language of haragil for candle lighting? Also, you'll notice that the performance of these other mitzvot merit one to be rewarded specifically in the arena of the object that one is meticulous in, a home, a garment, wine. There is a direct link between the mitzvah and the reward. But why are children connected to candle lighting? And finally, which nair is a person supposed to be regular in? The lighting of which particular candle is rewarded by children who are Torah scholars. Rashi comments that the candle referred to here is that of Shabbat and Hanukkah, while other manuscripts specify just Neirot Hanukkah. Whatever we understand here, the question remains, what is the link between lighting candles and having children who are Talmidei Chachamim? While there are, of course, several answers offered in different commentaries, the answer offered by Rabbi Yitzchak Meir Rotenberg Alter, the first Rebbe of the Hasidic dynasty of Ger, is remarkable. He asks us to pay close attention to the language of Rav Huna in the Gemara. As mentioned, the phrase used for lighting Hanukkah lights is haragil, one who regularly lights. In other words, lighting is a regular, constant behavior for a person. It's a habit. To translate it into terms that work in 2020, it's like a person who regularly turns on a light when they walk into a room. However, the Alter Rebbe continues and explains there is a hidden explanation in Rav Huna's words. He says that while lighting regularly can become a habit, the purpose of lighting candles, and really perhaps the entire purpose of the holiday of Hanukkah itself, is lahavi ha'ha'ara v'ha'hitchadshut el ha'hergal, to bring light and renewal to the habitual. There's something specific in lighting the Hanukkah lights that has the potential to bring newness and freshness to an act that can feel ordinary. The Sfat Emet, Rabbi Yehuda Aryeh Leib Alter, the grandson of the Alter Rebbe, continues his grandfather's line of thinking. And he's commenting on another Gemara, Masechet Shabbat, regarding the specific timing of when one can light Hanukkah lights until. There, in the conversation about the correct timing of lighting, we are taught about the latest time one may light. The Gemara states, mitzvata, the mitzvah of lighting the Hanukkah lights, is misha tishka hachama, from sunset, that's the earliest, right? Ad shetichla regel min hashuk, until traffic in the marketplace ceases. Later, the Gemara explains this concept as ad dechalya rigla de tarmodai, until the traffic of the people of Tadmor ceases. These Tadmorians were the wood merchants who stayed in the market until the last minute, in case people discovered that suddenly they needed more wood for the evening. An important message here: we stretch the possibility of fulfilling our obligation to light the Hanukkah lights as late as possible. The final merchants, the final stragglers in the market, we can light until they leave, for perhaps they will see our Chanukiah in our doorways and windows. The Sfat Emet, like his grandfather before him, picks up on the specific phraseology of the Gemara. It's not ad shetichla regel, until the last foot or leg is in the shuk, but rather shetichla regel ad dechalya rigla de tarmodai shehu gam kein lahasir hahergel v'hateva. That the role of Hanukkah is to remove hergel, habits. The Hanukkah light removes habit. However, it is also important for the Sfat Emet to notice the tarmodai here. It's not just removing habit, it's also what these specific merchants represent, which is the normalcy, the regularness of burning wood, i.e. creating light through burning wood, right? The normalcy of that act. Hanukkah is fundamentally not about teva, not about that which is normal, but rather limala min hateva, that which is above the normal. What it means to shed light, to bring renewal, is to refuse to be stuck in that which is teva. In so many ways, this is relevant to our times. The teva that surrounds us all, it can feel dark, overwhelming, impossible to overcome. Here, the Sfat Emet reminds us Hanukkah is about lifting us out of what we see as normal. Hanukkah asks us to see beyond our reality, to see what is possible, not just what is. But what is it about Hanukkah specifically that actually contains this potential? And how does this connect back to our original Gemara and Rav Huna's connection of Hanukkah to children and therefore to Torah study? I'd like to suggest that if we look carefully, we can understand that the holiday of Hanukkah is inherently connected to the word chinuch, education. They both come from the same shoresh, the same roots, chet nun chaf. In the Torah, this word chanoch, chanukat, is used to connote a beginning or a dedication. The dedication of the Mizbeach, the education of children, these are things about new beginnings and fresh starts, renewal, creativity, education, innovation, invention. Indeed, the Sfat Emet in several places explains that Hanukkah is in the realm of Torah Sheba'al Peh. Torah Sheba'al Peh, which asks us to learn that which has come before us and then to take our own place in the transmission of the Torah, to add our own voices, to add newness and renewal, to become part of the Ha'ara and Hitchadshut of the Beit Midrash. Utilizing this analysis of the Sfat Emet, we can come to understand some critically important lessons for Hanukkah 5781, the Hanukkah of a pandemic. We must be regil, we must be committed, we must be steadfast, learn regularly, light our candles regularly, be meticulous in our observance of mitzvot. But the real work of Hanukkah is to continue to infuse our commitments with light and with new potential, with new Torah, new voices, new creativity, with childlike curiosity, to use our ner to see our behaviors, our Torah and our mitzvot as lemala min hateva, not to get stuck in what is, but to see what is possible, to learn more, interpret, create, renew. As we light our Chanukiot this year, may we find comfort and strength in the normalcy of lighting. And also may we continue to see beyond what we can see at this moment and believe that new and different realities will come our way, Be'ezrat Hashem. Chanukah Sameach.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We have so far just tonight raised $2,257. So thank you so much for your support in just this one night. And I've so appreciated our journey that we've taken together tonight from discussing the foundation of the menorah to the light to dedication and education and so much more. And I just want to leave us with one question. You know, the Gemara that some of us talked about is my Hanukkah. What is Hanukkah? But it's a weird question because we already know what Hanukkah is. In that very Gemara, there's so many answers that are already given before that question has been asked. Also, we never asked my Sukkot, what is Sukkot, or what is Yom Kippur, or what is Rosh Hashanah? Why does the Gemara say my Hanukkah? What is Hanukkah? So Rashi there actually reinterprets the word my Hanukkah, not as what is Hanukkah, not as what is Hanukkah, but al eze Neiss kavua. What is the underlying Neiss? What is the underlying principle of Hanukkah? And I really want to just leave you with that question of what is your why? Why this year is Hanukkah special, important? What is animating you? What is different about it this year? There's so much that's different in our world. But I think the question of why is so much more special and animating and grounding than what. What gives us information? We want to learn, and we've learned so much here tonight. But I want to leave you with asking the question of why. So with that, I once again want to just thank everybody. Special thanks to Jen, who pulled this together for us. And just going to post one more time the link for those who want to continue to donate. And I'm going to wish you Hanukkah Sameach and a wonderful night. Thank you, everybody.